First of all, thank you so much for joining us. Tonight, our 16th Challenger Lecture Series event, presented by Hinckley Yachts and Hinckley Yacht Services. This is our 14th virtual event, and we are delighted to have Francesca Capcich and Jesse Fielding join us tonight to talk about their experience in the Solitaire du Figaro, single-handed race all over the north end of France and around England and Ireland, and hear about those amazing experiences they had sailing single-handed. Before we get started, though, I just want to talk a little bit about Sail Newport. And as we begin our 39th year, we do so with the optimism and excitement for what the future holds. Despite the many challenges of the past 2 years, we remain focused on our mission to provide affordable community access to sailing, offer world-class sailing instruction, and host exceptionally managed sailing regattas. But as we have hope for a great sailing season, we're witness to a military conflict with catastrophic humanitarian consequence. We're part of a global community. And for those of us who are on this call, we're of course have a subset, our global sailing community. We share the love for the sea, the understanding of the freedom of controlling a sailboat in using only the wind in our sails and the waves that we sail through. We're witnessing this humanitarian disaster. We are witnesses to this invasion. We hope and pray for an end to the hostilities that besiege the Ukrainian people. And I applaud these young Opti sailors in Ukraine for sending us all this message. No war, no to war, yes to sailing. So again, welcome to this 16th edition of the Challenger Lecture Series presented by Hinckley Yachts. We're really excited to as always, dedicate this Challenger Lecture Series to our very close friend, Dr. Charlie Shoemaker. He's been such a mentor to so many of us in Newport. His famous ensign right here, number 1082, is named Challenger. He's won countless number of ensign regattas around the country, and he's helped so many young people discover the sport of sailing, not only at his home club of Newport Yacht Club, but all over Narragansett Bay, and indeed as an ensign class champion all over the country. So thanks, Dr. Shue. As always, we want to thank Hinckley Yachts and Hinckley Yacht Services. Our sponsor, Hinckley, from sales and service to new and used boats. Hinckley Yachts and Hinckley Yacht Services has you covered. Learn more about Hinckley Yachts product lines and yacht services offering at hinkleyyachts.com. Couple updates for you. Our youth program registration. Most of the sessions are full, but we do have some availability. Go to Sail Newport's website, sign up, see if there's some available spots for your kids. We're really excited for a full program this year. Hopefully the COVID situation stays as balanced as it is right now. Seems like we're on a good path. We also have a great dock restoration and replacement project that is ongoing. We're battling some of the ongoing global supply chain issues, as many people are, but we're going to have those docks in for your summer season. Also, the 22 regatta schedule is online. Registrations are open for all of our regattas, and there's still a ton of frostbiting happening out there in the Newport Harbor, including lasers and turnabouts, and even these silly little toy boats that we sail here each and every Saturday and Sunday at Sail Newport. But on to our presentation. We're excited to showcase one of the world's premier offshore sailing events. The Solitaire du Figaro is one of France's biggest sporting events, never mind a sailing event. We're eager to hear about the race and the adventures last summer of Francesca and Jesse. First of all, Francesca, I'd like to wish you a happy International Women's Day. We're celebrating all the women in sailing and all the women in our lives, and happy Women's History Month as well as Women's Day, International Women's Day. Francesca.
Thank you.
Yeah, Francesca has been a offshore sailor for some time, but born in Trieste, Italy, Francesca's been involved in various sports throughout her life. Sailing was a big part of her life, though. And after graduation from college, Francesca joined the Italian Air Force and was a sailing athlete for Italy in London, the 2012 Olympic Games, in the laser radial class, and in Rio in 2016 in the Olympic Games as a crew in the 49er class. Francesca did the 2018 Volvo Ocean Race on Turn the Tide on plastic, and has also been a skipper of the 90-foot Maxi Golfo de Trieste Winds of Change. Welcome, Francesca.
Thank you, and good evening, everybody, and thank you for joining us today.
Excellent. And this one, Jesse Fielding, who currently right now is in the deep bilges of a 100-foot Super Maxi at a nav station, so that's why he's showing up a little dark on screen. But Jesse was born into the amazing sailing fraternity of Narragansett Bay, grew up in a town of Wickford, Rhode Island. Jesse is a Rhode Islander through and through, a URI grad with degrees in political science and economics. He won the College Offshore World Sailing Championship for the mighty Rhody Rams. Jesse was also the first winner of the Brooke Gonzalez Trophy at the Brooke Gonzalez Advanced Racing Clinic here in Newport, Rhode Island at Sail Newport. And this award went to the sailor with the greatest willingness to learn and the greatest attitude throughout the 3-day clinic. Jesse was part of the Morning Light crew that sailed the Transpac in 07, which spawned the Disney documentary Morning Light. Yes, Jesse is indeed a movie star. And look at that collar situation you got going on. You got the big collar going. Good. Jesse's a pro sailor, sailing and winning in inshore races and offshore races around the world, Transats, Transpacs, Middle Sea races, Caribbean 600s, Bermuda races, and so many more. Most important are Jesse's guest appearances on the mighty yacht Tinky, the Shields, and the Newport Wednesday night fleet. He goes sailing with Clay and Nancy Deutsch and I every once in a while, and it's great to have him back whenever he's in Newport. And thank you both for joining us. So with that, we are going to start talking about your experiences as ocean racers, and what brought you from these successful crude programs or dinghy sailing to wanting to sail single-handed in this marathon of sailing.
Well, because we are a bit crazy first. I feel that would bring everybody to sail offshore. Try maybe to find also the adventure side of sailing, not only the inshore, going around buoy for a few hours and come back ashore. The offshore is definitely bringing more the adventure, the preparation. It's gonna take a long time to be on the water, and everything needs to be checked. Everything needs to be prepared to make sure that you have a good experience instead of a nightmare out there. So I personally enjoyed offshore sailing a lot. I come from a background on dinghies, and when I discovered this world, it kind of opened completely my eyes, and I fall in love with it.
Jesse, you're one of the most social human beings I've ever met in my life. I can't imagine the conversations that you had with yourself being alone for this many days on the water.
Yeah, there are a lot of characters are out there. I probably broke a lot of rules, actually. Had a former president, God knows who else. But yeah, you have to be a little crazy. And I think it's just, you get addicted to being able to go dinghy sailing all the time, 24/7. And then when you start to discover and peel back the layers of the technical layers of offshore sailing, I think that's what gets a lot of people really addicted to pushing those limits. And I never knew it would take me to doing it in the solo format, but life throws some crazy things at you, and Francesca and I both wouldn't shy away from it. That's for sure.
Well, Francesca, talk about those differences. I mean, both of you who have been on these amazing crewed, whether it's a Volvo 65 or Jesse, you've done a ton of sailing on the Rambler and with Charlie on different boats around. You're used to sailing boats at 105 to 115%. How do you make that transition to single-handed when maybe you never get to 100%? How does it work? How do you change that mentality of go to trying to sail alone?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was probably the biggest challenge going to France and doing all the training in solo, or even solo plus one, when you have a little bit of safety of another person on board, but at the same time, you know that you're there to train by yourself and do everything by yourself. So that was definitely a big challenge, trying to manage how much can I push the boat while I'm staying alive, and what's the rhythm that I can find to be able to push for 3 days in a row. And honestly, the fleet is really solid. Like, everyone is, you're mentioning like numbers and polders. Trust me, they push the boat the same as they will push the boat with a crew. So,
Right.
Few of that French guys that have years of experience, they are able to push the 100% of the performance while they're also able to manage themselves, sleeping, eating, and having some time off. So
That's like factors into my next question. You have so many cool systems on these boats, Jesse. Talk about the auto helms or the autopilots and how that allows you the freedom to do more trimming and those kind of things.
Yeah, I mean, it's the classic juncture of man and machine, or human and machine, as it were. And essentially, as opposed to just being on a spinnaker sheet for a run where you're pushing yourself to push the boat at 105%, you break that down into pushing the boat, the machine, and yourself, and the spinnaker sheet, all of those things at 105%. Or maybe you're really tired and you're pushing yourself at 120%, and maybe the boat's broken, so it's only at 85%, but it all averages out to the highest maximum that you can do in that moment. And that's what pushing in a shorthand environment is all about. And just a quick one, back in the time machine, Francesca led the way on this. We left Annapolis in 2020, and I left solo plus one with the great sailor, and our destination was essentially Charleston. And Francesca took off by herself, said she wanted to figure out what that was like. And we got to the end, and should probably let her tell it, but at the end of the day, I don't know what the average polar percentage was. Francesca, you might remember, because I'm pretty sure that was your first time solo, but we watched you go over the horizon, and it just changed my perspective on basically everything. It was a game changer. And she did that and led the way, and we never really got off that train. So it was, it's been an unbelievable ride since that first solo mission for our team.
Right. Well, talk about that for a second. You guys, you came into the double-handed discipline thinking there might be a Paris Olympic medal, or at least a potentially a discipline of double-handed offshore sailing. So you got into it. You got these awesome boats that were able to compete here locally in the solo twins and do some training. What happened during that time leading up to the decision that Paris wasn't going to have the double-handed?
Yeah, I mean, it was not really our decision. We've been a little bit tricked by War Sailing, I would say. They definitely made the decision that having a mixed double-handed offshore event for the Olympic, it was too much for a lot of the countries that normally take part at the Olympics. Economically wise and logistic wise, it's a big project. We've been lucky enough that we had a really supportive sponsor behind us, and we had, you know, the gear, the equipment, the time to put in this project, but it's quite a lot for a lot of countries that cannot afford it. And that was definitely a hard moment in our campaign because we were working a lot double-handed, and you know, yeah, then it was a really kind of crucial point where we had to switch into a different goal. And I think it, you know, going sailing in France, it was almost a consequence of what we had here in the US. We've been able to race and train on a platform like the Figaro, that it's really famous in France, where the racing in France is an incredible level. So it was kind of a natural way after, you know, the Olympic dream. It's like, okay, we have this tool, we put so many hours into it, we're working so hard. Let's try to go on the other side of the ocean and see what, you know, this French Figaro sailors are doing. Let's see if we can sail with them, against them, and maybe sometimes even beat them. And I think that was actually, in my opinion, really, really nice.
Good. So good segue. The La Solitaire du Figaro in 2021. This was the race course. You look at this race course, and I see this as a difficult course for any crewed team. That's a lot of sail changes, a lot of, you know, you're going around a lot of peninsulas. And I mean, was it daunting? I mean, were you ever like, holy smokes, what are we doing here?
Every day. every hour, every start. I mean, you could ask Sally and Ralphie. I mean, it was, the start of leg one was probably the most nervous I've ever been on a dock prior to a race start ever in my memory. It was, the forecast was, you know, building frontal passage in the Bay of Biscay, downwind, jibing all the way to Spain, turning around a fishing mark, and then beating upwind in the same thing you just ripped downwind in. And you knew they weren't going to put reefs in. You knew they were going to sail their boats at 100%. You knew what that polar was. So, yeah, between the pre-start routing and just being thrown into a race that's being conducted in another language, it's it was full on. It was as full on as I've ever been.
So take us through this race course. Leg one is this red one, stage one, I guess they call it, almost 700 nautical miles.
So the 2021 course was the longest ever in the history of the Solitaire. So Jesse and I have been like, you know, lucky to have this like longest course ever to just start our career in the Figaro. So we start from Saint-Nazaire, and then, as Jesse just mentioned, we went all the way down to La Coruña in Spain, and we had pretty much 2 days of upwind in 25 plus knots of wind, all the way back to Lorient. Lorient is pretty much the mecca of the offshore sailing, so that's it was actually a really nice end of the first leg and start of the second leg, because the culture around, you know, the Figaro and the offshore, like they treat us almost as heroes, and personally never really happened to me. So that was incredible to see how the community is embracing the offshore, you know, in France. And from Lorient, it was a shorter leg to, I think it was from Lorient to Fécamp, or I guess, and then
Lorient around the corner.
Yeah, but I mean, shorter, but it doesn't mean that it's less hard. When you go, especially around La Platte and Le Four, the current is insane. So it's really
yellow line, right? So that's stage two, and you go up around Le Four.
Up, and you pass La Platte and Le Four and get to Fécamp. It's pretty much few like tide gates. So depending on your navigation, depending what time of the day you end up there, it can be either great and you get that, 6-7 knots of current pushing you to the right direction, or it can be pretty horrible because you end up fighting a current that it's pretty much impossible to fight, especially with a 30-footer. So it ended up being really like tactically challenging, and try to be always in contact with the fleet to don't get pushed back. So that was
You can drop.
the first
You
2
can
legs.
you can drop so easily. And basically, speaking about autopilots, first night, Francesca and I were both in touch with the fleet. I was more in touch. Every leg, the goal was to be more in touch. So things were going all right. And around 11 o'clock, before rounding the bottom of sort of this offset side of it, before doing kind of the majority of the leg, had a full wipeout, full Chinese drive with the Jennifer up, head to wind. And then you end up behind. And you don't just end up behind by a little bit, you end up bleeding the whole tide cycle. And it was a very long night. It's not hard to clean the boat up necessarily because the sails are manageable, but then you just start bleeding miles and performance goes down. And anyhow, trying to catch back up, and had a pretty cool moment off of Brest with the French Navy. So basically looked like one of those it's got a German name, but one of those kind of anti-radar modern ships, and got on the phone with the helm and said, "Je suis désolé, I'm really sorry, but I'm doing the Solitaire du Figaro. Can I please pass in this channel?" And the guy goes, "Oh, absolument, no problem." So basically, a French warship stood down so that I could complete a passage of a lighthouse, and he was happy to do it. So there's a lot of moments like that. But when Francesca talked about getting behind, I was behind, but the community of France, whether it's a warship patrolling fishing waters or just the people on the dock, you feel like they're into it, and it pumps you up a little bit more to keep your act together, or try to keep your act together, as it were, in my case.
Well, before we get into the other, we'll get into the boat in a little bit. And before we get into the other legs, I just wanted to talk a little bit about the French culture that you mentioned. The French culture in single-handed sailing and offshore ocean racing is beyond anything that we as Americans know. And certainly you lived it. Talk a little bit more about that culture, and look at this. Where is this? Is this at the start of the race?
This is Saint-Nazaire,
Mm-hmm.
right? Am I right, Jesse? Yes, I think so.
You're on mute, Jesse.
Yep, that's one of Sam's Zoom shots of the sailing festival.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I mean in France it's really about, like, I'm mostly European, right? I was born and raised in Europe, and probably on the wrong side of Europe for what is offshore sailing. But there is definitely like so much more focus on what you can do as a sailor, like putting the hours on, work ethic, working hard. Like, these guys just, go sailing a lot. Every day they put the sails up, they go sailing, and they have a really huge training group. So they are able to, get pushed every single day. There are a few hotspots in France. One is Lorient, one is Port La Forêt. There are different training groups, but all of them, they have incredible sailors that put the hours on. And of course, they have sponsors behind that support them. So there is a huge culture of offshore sailing. So they are also able to find sponsorship that, it will be like a supermarket. It sponsored them. And they give, the sponsor give enough money that they are able to do this professionally, get a salary out of it. And, sometimes we are thinking about in crazy huge companies here in the US to try to find the budget. Where in France, you can really get that from different smaller sponsor, but they believe so strongly in what offshore sailing is. And yeah, for me, that was a really eye opener because we maybe here in the US, you come from a culture of a little bit more comfort. It's harder to get out of that comfort zone.
Mhm.
The guys in France, they love to be out of that comfort zone. Like more like uncomfortable, better it is, and harder they push and faster they want to go. And they are just like happy being out there and be like, soaking wet and get, throw on this little Figaro. And I think that was pretty impressive to see, to live and try to copy, and got maybe at the end of the race, I got on a place where I was comfortable being uncomfortable, like extremely uncomfortable. But it took some time. So,
Jesse, got anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, you really have to wrap your arms around it. And I noticed that today I have a different tolerance for quote unquote the comfort level. Whether it's pushing, sleeping, eating, what you're wearing, conditions. It's the place we were sailing, that whole collective geography there is incredibly harsh, and it never lets you forget it, and it's always ready to bite you. So it's a completely unique experience, and they have a completely unique culture they've built around it.
Okay, well, let's get back. We're going to take a little journey back in this presentation and talk a little bit about the boats themselves. These are the Figaro Beneteau 3s, all one designs, right? Everybody has the same boat. Did you own your boats or did you charter boats?
We chartered when we went in France. We chartered 2 boats, and we pretty much used one for all the double-handed events that we did together, and that was a really important lead up to the Solitaire. Mm-hmm. And then for the single-handed event, we had 2 boats.
Mm-hmm. And Malcolm Gefter was a big part of your project, right, Jesse? In terms of getting involved and helping, kind of help you manage the program while you were sailing here in the States.
Yeah, I mean, massive. It's we were in error by not seeing if Malcolm was in the audience. I don't know. I can't see him through the Zoom, but maybe he's out there. And yeah, we owe him. We own this whole project, and it. He gave us he showed us the pathway and encouraged us to go down it at our pace and really be a sailor-driven program. And so, thank you, Malcolm, if you're listening. If you're not, thank you anyway. He's definitely a champion of the crazy ideas in the sport, and we need more of it. And he bought one of these boats and brought it to the United States. And that, I think other than there's another guy in Annapolis, Maryland named Laurent Givry, who has a Figaro that he's training on in the US and also competing on in France. And it takes avant-garde thinking like that to inspire change, but also to provide the pathway to start the experience. And you just have to start. You got to start somewhere. So we owe Malcolm a big thanks for starting us down that road.
Fantastic. Can't agree more. So all right, here's your platform. It's kind of a fuzzy picture, I know, but you have a bulbed fixed keel, no canting keel on these boats. Tell us about these wings, if you call them, and what are they trying to accomplish?
Yeah, so the foils.
I said it that way because we raced against you, and every time we saw them, we thought that was a lot of windage and drag.
Yeah, best and worst foils ever.
Yeah,
but
everybody had them, right? Everybody had them.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, when you're actually racing like one design in France it doesn't matter. Everyone has them when it's light wind and also when it's blowing 35. So Yeah, that's pretty much the biggest change that they did from the Figaro 2 to the Figaro 3, is taking like almost 30% off weight from the boat, and they add two foils. I think they were around 40 kilos each, something like that. So quite light. I agree. It was a lot of dragging, especially in light wind, or like there is so much seaweed in France, especially in that part of France, that trying to
Oh my God.
clear. Yes, it's like yeah. So you have
Full
5
PTSD.
things in the water instead of 3. So instead of clearing only rudders and try to clear the keel, you always have to clear also the 2 foils. So that was not pleasant all the time. There was a lot, like there is a lot of weed catcher. At the same time, in big breeze, especially going upwind or like a power reach, having having a little bit of play with the rake on the foils, it was actually really nice. Like we were able to keep a lot of sail area up and still be able to sail the boat the same as a dinghy, and you could definitely feel the difference with the foils or not. So pro con as everything. Yeah, that was pretty much my takeaway.
Upwind, not as big a deal. Downwind, certainly just drag, but reaching was where they were supposedly, working for you, is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, even downwind, honestly, was it like they were actually able to keep the bow way higher. So we had few legs where, and also some race leading up to the Solitaire where, I mean, we had pretty hard conditions out there. And when you're by yourself and you need to trust the boat, because you need to get some sleep at one point. If you have 24 hours of 25 plus knots and big waves, there is a moment where you need to trust the boat, put the pilot on, and make sure that all the settings are almost perfect, and try to sleep. And sometimes it works, sometimes you wipe out pretty big. The pilot is not a human being, so can manage until certain amount of load, but when the load is too much, I mean, it's only an autopilot. So the foils were actually helping the autopilot driving the boat, especially in these big conditions going downwind. So yes on the drag, but also yes on a big help for the solo.
Okay, so why don't we go back to the race course for a second? And we've gone through the first 2 legs. First leg was red, second leg was yellow. This third leg, when I saw it, and I followed you guys almost every day, it was great. The tracker was great. Some of it was in English, not a lot, but some of it was in English. But crossing the English Channel here, that's got to be just insane, the amount of shipping that's going through there. And how long is that? And did they allow you to do it all in one during the daytime?
Oh, what a leg.
We lost your video. That's all right. Keep going, Jesse.
Sorry. Well, I'm not going to talk for this whole leg because I mean, so there wasn't an organized crossing of the channel. There was a race start. There's a drone shot somewhere in your catalog of us reaching across after the start. But basically, we went over to say hi to cows, wave goodbye, and then we ended up crisscrossing the channel for the rest of the night and day 2, essentially, minus the little TSS you see in the middle of the channel. So it was a big decision going either side. The conditions were pretty nice, but at the end of the day, you're dodging traffic. So it was so full on. And Francesca had the first full on experience in that part. I'll let her tell it. And then I had a real doozy of a time getting around the Lizard and Land's End, but that can come later.
Okay, Francesca, you're up. What's your story?
Yeah. So that was actually my first really big adventure on the Figaro, like during the Solitaire. So I got just, yeah, as Jesse said, we were pretty much crossing the channel all the time, trying to get the best breeze and jibing back. And I got basically a wrap of fishing net and seaweed all wrapped around the keel. So normally even if you have some seaweed that you're not able to take away with, a rope system or the stick, we were just trying to pretty much wipe out the boat, do a big wipe out, and then trying to go backwards. And we are also allowed to use the engine to go backwards. So you call on the radio, you tell them that you're going marche arrière. That's probably going to stick all our life, because it's just about marche arrière on the radio. Because of course everyone is getting stuck in seaweed. So it's like, USA 59, marche arrière, USA 20, marche arrière, everybody's going backwards. I tried that few times, nothing. And we have a camera looking at the keel, so we can see if there is something stuck. And it was this huge bunch of fishing nets and seaweed. So I spent quite a lot of time trying to clear it another way. And then just before the sunset, I was like, well, the only option is either go home because I'm going so slow, or put the sails down and jump in the water and try to clear it. You cannot do it during the night. It's not allowed in the rule. The only way you can go in the water is during the day. Mm-hmm. And it's all a procedure. So you need to put all your sails down. The only sail that can stay up is the main. Then, not make a notification to the race committee that you're going in the water, and being attached, having your AIS with you, but it's freezing out there. So, and again, another rookie mistake, to save some pounds. The wetsuit will not needed. So I was pretty much in my underwear with a rope around my waist, a knife in my hand, the AIS in my bra, and here we go.
You guys should have seen Sally's face when she told this story.
It was the worst experience I had out there. I hate the water. Even in the summer, I never swim. I like to be on top of the water on a boat. I hate to go in the water. And it was horrible. So the first attempt, it was a fail, because I kind of jumped from the back of the boat. So with the big tide and big current that is out there, I just get, swiped out. So I was pulling myself back on the boat, and the second attempt was successful because I jumped pretty much from the bow, just in front of the foil, landing on the keel, trying to clear it as much as I could and get swiped back on the back of the boat. And so that was it. And then still with the underwear, put the kite back up. Our words were going on. It was not so nicely. It was a lot of, swearing in different languages. But sails were going back up, put the pilot, and I spent at least half an hour inside trying to just get warm again, because it was really, really, the water was really, really cold. So that was the nice leg number 3.
I like Jesse, you beat that.
Yeah, no, I can't beat that. That's why it was her turn to go first. But so fast forward into that night, breeze building, all part of the forecast. Probably seeing 18, gusting to 22, probably 3 or 4 jibes left of the night. I'm in a pack of 3, so that's good for me. and all of a sudden, I basically feel like I've run aground in the middle of the English Channel, in hundreds of meters of water. and just hitting mud is sort of the sensation. I basically jumped / fell down below, flipped on the camera for the keel, and saw basically this giant beehive. It looked like an upside down beehive, and you can see the full keel on the screen. And the net was so big it went off camera. So I knew I had, a matter of a minute to do something, or it was going to be wait till morning, jump over the side like my friend. Not good. So hit the autopilot off, let the boat wipe out. That's the comfort level we were at on this, 2 legs in. Now we're just wiping the boat out. Marche arrière, s'il vous plaît, climb on deck. Here we go, flapping everything. So full back down, backwind jib, flapping kite, nothing. I know I've got one more chance, get the thing bored away, go again, engine on this time, because you ignore the rest, you just start doing what you need to do, engine on, and then one more wipeout, full reverse, big back down, waves over the transom, and luckily the thing just let go. And it hadn't wrapped around the keel. And the AIS track is ridiculous. But sails were up, flapping, pulling back in. Away we go towards Land's End. Woke up and, sun comes up in 25 knots. Take the kite down with the Lizard and reach toward Wales. Just another day in the Figaro. It's one after the next.
Well, so there's never like a time where you're just fully relaxed. Like, oh yeah, it's just a, beam reach, maybe put the staysail up, go down below, cook some food, some freeze dried. Could you ever heat up water, or are you always like doing some other, other
part of, it's just part of living. You're like, oh, should I take my boots off or boil water and look at the weather? Or, you basically got to do 3 or 4 things all at the same time. And yeah, at some point you do need to boil some water. So,
well, that's actually a very good question that we got. It's was how do you, where is this one? How do you allocate your responsibilities over the course of, they say 24 hours, but how do you do that mentally? You need to change, you need to furl the 0 and go fast, right? So that's number 1. You got to do the sail, put the right sails up, take the wrong sails down. That's like number 1. But then you got to navigate. Then you got to figure out, oh, wait, how far do I want to go this way before I have to put the other sail? How do you allocate those resources in your brain?
Francesca, do you want to give the top 3 or?
Yeah, I feel like, experience play a big role in this kind of racing. You could tell the guys that are doing this from so many years, they just get into a routine and it looks easy, right? Every time you're doing something well or you're winning race or the thing that come out from every winner is like, oh, I was just feeling good. It felt easy. And that's what you can tell from the guys from the front, everything, there's no rush. There is always something like planned and everything is smooth. That was not definitely what was happening on my boat most of the time. It was either, like rushing something or being that step behind the game, especially in the first few legs, So I think preparation play a huge role. Having almost like a road book where you put, navigation wise, that's probably what the weather will do in the next 3 days. You need to be flexible, but at the same time, that you go upwind for 10 hours. Okay, going upwind is a good moment to get rest, to eat some food, to boil some water, and do, a big check on the boat. Conditions where you need to steer a lot, that for sure a no-go for sleeping. So having some sort of like a road book in your brain and in your computer. So when you go navigate, you see that, like there is a note on the side of the software saying, this is a good moment for some sleep. Okay. That was what And that's what I was thinking when I was ashore doing some navigation, making notes. Okay, here I can sleep, here I can do this, here I can do that. Then you try to see if reality is matching with your wish, So yes, the weather is matching what, the forecast is saying. Okay, I can keep with my notes. Is the weather completely different to what the forecast was saying? Then I need to be flexible and adapt. But I think preparation play a big role.
Mhm.
And it's definitely a roller coaster of, it's a big up and down. You get moments where everything feels okay and you're just sailing and enjoying, and moments where everything is falling apart, but you're still 200 miles away from land, so you need to find something inside you
Mhm.
and keep pushing, and somehow you want to keep up with the guys in front of you and leave the guys that are behind you behind. So that's probably what was kind of drive me the most.
Mhm.
Try to beat as many boats as I could, or try to be as fast as I could.
Okay, well, we have a question from the audience. Rob Alexander, who actually you both have sailed against. He and his co-skipper Libby, his wife Libby, do a lot of double-handed racing on the Jeanneau 3300 Bite, which if you probably remember. His question was, or is, what's the percentage of women versus men in the fleet right now in France in the Figaro?
Still quite low, but there are few teams that has like an allocated spot in their team for women, like the Team Bretagne. They have one boat that is always allocated for a female skipper. And Port La Forêt has few female skippers. I think in the last Solitaire we were 5, maybe.
That sounds
So
right.
the number is not huge, but at the same time is it's getting there, and there are definitely female skippers on the IMOCAs. So,
right. Jesse, I got one for you.
Mm.
What did you learn about yourself that surprised you the most? It's actually for both of you, but I'll let Jesse go first.
Yeah, it's as any French philosopher across the ages would say. I think you find out more about yourself in the toughest moments than the other moments. And yeah, I was super nervous going into this race. It was not on my schedule of plans to sail solo in the first year in a race like that. But I found something inside myself again to rise to the challenge, and I think that always feels good. Not necessarily when you're going through it, but at the end of it, when you can rise to an occasion, I think you can approach other challenges and occasions with that same sort of attitude. So I owe the solitaire race format a lot because it was an incredible challenge to try to constantly step up and meet. And yeah, I'm still here today. So that was not necessarily not to say that it was that it wasn't dire going into it, but yeah, it was a big challenge, and it was a real opportunity to meet that challenge.
Great. Francesca?
Yeah, I agree with Jesse, and I think for me the biggest challenge was accepting the fact that like few months, less than a year of experience on the boat and experience sailing by yourself is not really enough to be able to be competitive with the top of the fleet. So I definitely got frustrated too many times. Jesse can definitely be be a saint for keeping up with that, because be not being able to be as fast as the top or making the right decision as the top guys are doing. I was getting extremely frustrated. And I know that's not the right approach most of the time. The right approach will be just, be aware that there are a few of them that they did 15 of solitaires. They were doing their like 16th edition.
It's a
And
lot.
that's a lot. It doesn't matter on which boat. They went from the Figaro to the Figaro 2 to the Figaro 3. But the style of racing is the same. The boat changed, but it doesn't really matter because they are so used to what they have to do when they are by themselves and how much they are able to push it. So it was definitely a big roller coaster of like being happy and suddenly I was like crying by myself. I'm like, what am I doing? I'm crying by myself. There's no one here that like hug me or is like telling me anything. And that's, a lot of emotions to go through. And most of the time it was really nice to get back on land, get back to the dock and have, your family, your friends back there being like happy that, you're back and you did your best. But inside you feel that, what I just left like 5 boats behind me. That's not great, but then it's not probably that the point. You learn that actually being out there and challenge yourself and try to always do your best against the best in the sport. That's already a big first step. And then winning come probably after doing a lot of racing and a lot of training. So
Yeah, just a lot, just repetition. There's a question here. What's the single most important skill to develop for long distance offshore racing? And what I'm hearing, it's perseverance and doing it, continuing to do it. And whether it's crewed or single-handed, double-handed, whatever it is, get some miles under you. But certainly if you're going to get better at the discipline of single-handed racing, you got to do it a lot, right?
Absolutely.
Go single-handed canoeing. I mean, that's what the French sort of showed us, is that it's a solo sport, but it's also a team sport. And just real quick on what Francesca was saying, I mean, I wouldn't be here on this Zoom call without the team we had and having friends and basically family on the dock. So that was a huge part of it. And it's that way for all of the French in this culture, is you absorbing the energy of the people that are around you, supporting you. But they show that, early teens, they're out in basically something the size of a 420 solo. And they're learning to navigate in situation. They're learning to trim in situation. They're learning sleep management by doing, it'd be like, for us, we focused a lot because it's all we could do was, a lot of online courses and nav prep and, safety prep and list making and budgets and all that stuff has its place. But the French are the leaders in just doing it, just like the Nike commercial. And it's a massive testament to their cultural application.
So did you have any coaching on like sleep management? That was another question we got from the registration list. Did you have any coaching on how to do that, or are you just winging it?
We did a little bit. We tried. Unfortunately, I feel that the theory is kind of far away from what real life in these small boats are. So for a project like a Vendée Globe or the Room, you get into a routine where you can really work your sleep patterns and your body can get used to this. It's really like here, like how much like willing to suffer and go out and be uncomfortable and be able to sleep for 10 minutes, put the loudest alarm you can get, and be waked up by this crazy sound around you and keep doing it again. I understand there are studies out there about sleeping There are a few teams that use some like sleeping coaching,
Right.
but it's really out of the book.
So, well, Francesca, I'm really glad you just said that, because now I know you and Sally are expecting a child soon. You have perfect training for what it's like when a
Yes.
kid is up in the middle of the night. So I just want
Yeah.
to say that is a added benefit of doing the Figaro, is now you have that sleep deprivation to look forward to with your young baby.
Yeah, I'm not sure I'm looking forward to it, but
You're training for it now.
yeah, I can get probably back into that nice pattern of no sleeping, kind of sleeping with one eye open, and yeah. So, but you get back into like being comfortable in your bed pretty quick. So let's see.
You'll get that too. Yeah. So we're kind of coming up on our hour that we do these things. Any advice, first of all, any advice for a young sailor who is wanting to get into it on the American side? Let's start with Jesse. Young American kid, college sailor, wants to do offshore sailing, wants to be a single-handed sailor. What do they do?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, it's not the easiest thing, as you mentioned in the intro. I mean, I've been incredibly lucky. People listening and people in general know how lucky I've been, and all I can say is make your own luck. Show up to the dock, give anyone that's in the world of offshore sailing a shout, and ask to do it, ask to come along. I think it's a bit of a, I'm not sure where it's at in the world today, but I got my first miles doing deliveries, and it's an old Ralphie Stites-ism to start on deliveries, and basically do whatever you can to get off the dock onto a boat that's going to be out there at night, and just keep pushing and keep telling people that's what you want to do, and the opportunity will come along, and basically always have your sea bag packed. I've got a couple funny ones about that, and frankly, if any young sailor has any questions, they can put my phone number across the screen or something. I'm always happy to help. I know Francesca is too, and I think we all are, because anyone that has the passion to want to do it enough to reach out and commit to it and actually step off the dock, we're all ready to help.
Fantastic. Now, Francesca, Jesse, are you going to do it again? And if you do it again and you start really liking this, is the Vendée Globe in your future? Either of you?
I'm going to go on mute for that.
I would love it. I would love to have the funding and the time to do it again, and definitely I will be in for a Vendée. So it's a huge project. You need to have a really strong team behind. As I feel like always say, one person is going around the world in the boat, but there are a lot of people that are going around the world not on the boat, and you need all that to be successful, and it takes a lot. It's not just about money. It takes a lot of time of also other team members, takes a lot of research for the right equipment, the right sails. So I will be definitely up for the adventure, and but it's gonna take a little bit more time to find all the right pieces for the puzzle.
I've signed up for a Capcich jersey, and I'm on Team Capcich. So yeah, no, I think it's the greatest sporting challenge in the world, and I think that it's unknown to world sport, but it's just incredible. I got to be in the dock in La Havre for the start of the TJV, which is the double-handed race in the bigger boats, and I can only imagine the Vendée. But at the end of the day, it really is man, machine, woman, machine, just the ultimate challenge around the planet unassisted. It's yeah, I would be honored to help my friend do it. So let's make it happen.
I think the gauntlet's been laid down here, Francesca. We're on your team.
There you go.
And
yeah,
Jesse,
then
I will say that is a firm no from Jesse. He's not
firm no.
A firm no. Well, thank you,
Yeah.
everybody. This has been fantastic. Thank you for all the questions. I got to most of the questions. Really excited to have these things in person coming up. We're gonna start them off again. We're still trying to get one together for April for the Earth Month, an environmental one with 11th Hour Racing. We'll let you know how that goes. But you know, at all of these Challenger Lecture Series events, we do begin and end with a bit of a call to action to support our fundraising initiatives. Tonight, take a moment to choose one of those great Ukrainian relief causes to research and support. Take a look at those and put some money towards this relief effort, because this isn't going away anytime soon, and those folks need our help. Thank you all for attending. Thank you to our sponsor, Hinckley Yachts and Hinckley Yacht Services. Thanks to Francesca and Jesse. And thanks to Nikki Raccio, our events manager, who put this all together tonight and keeps us online and on schedule. Thank you for joining us again for the Challenger Lecture Series. We'll see you next month.